Well, everyone, we're back again. This is the next episode that we're going to talk about. I got Kaylah with me.
Yeah.
She's here for our second one. I was so excited when she agreed to be on the podcast, and I know many of you who are watching will be super excited she's on here. She has a lot to contribute. She's a special lady. That's why I'm married to her. As we think about these things, we're talking about marriage now. And the first one, we talked about dating. Dating, whether that's your children dating, you're dating now, whoever you are, things that you should be vigilant about. You know, just take your time, be doing all that stuff, and making sure you're picking a person you want to spend the rest of your life with. And of course, nothing's guaranteed. Things happen. We all totally understand that. But you just want to try your very best, of course.
Yeah.
And I wanted to reiterate, because at the last episode we talked about this at the very end, but we want to mention it again. We are not perfect people.
Definitely not.
We are not. We fall in that category of Romans 3:23, where we have fallen short of the glory of God, for all of sin. None of us are perfect. We don't know everything. I'm not a licensed counselor. We're just giving advice that we have experienced, and of course from the Word of God as well. But just something we need to keep in mind. But marriage. Mm-hmm. So we've been married for 11 years.
Yep.
And it's been a wonderful 11 years. Mm-hmm. Tell everyone how I proposed.
So he proposed at the Atlanta Braves stadium, actually Turner Field.
Yep.
And he got us up on the Jumbotron.
I did.
Which, if you know me, I don't like big crowds. So we almost missed getting on the Jumbotron because I would not stand up because I had no idea what was happening.
Yeah. She was a little embarrassed, and I had to get her by the hand and pull her up when we were up there, and I was basically like, stand up, stand up, stand up. And of course, I think, wasn't there like a bridal party behind us?
Yes, from Jacksonville.
There was a whole slew of ladies. And when I proposed, I mean, they went berserk.
Yeah.
They went, oh my goodness. They're like, here he is. He's proposing here at Turner Field. And I was like, yeah. I mean, we're going to do it right, I guess. I mean, that's just the way I chose to do it. I thought that they weren't going to put us up there. She told me it was supposed to be like the third inning. And I waited, and it hit the fourth inning. And I was like, uh-oh. Hit the fifth inning. I was like, this isn't going to happen. I guess I'll have to just come up with plan B. And then luckily it finally happened, and my dad was smacking me on the shoulder. He's like, you're on the Jumbotron. He's like, it's time. And all of that. But it worked out.
Yeah, so funny story. During the whole 3-4 innings, Tate kept looking at the Jumbotron. And so I'm like, why are you staring at that? And why are we not really talking? And so he's like, I just always wanted to be on the Jumbotron.
Yeah.
So he said that, and like you said, it was like the fifth inning probably. I saw us on the Jumbotron, and my task was to not say a word because I did not want to be on the Jumbotron.
Needless to say, it worked out. She said yes, and we went from there. And it's been one of those things. But we're talking about marriage today, and we got a couple of conversation starters and things that we wanted to talk to you guys about. And just it's good to just talk about these things. I think sometimes it's almost like marriage is one of those things. It's funny. Sometimes the preacher will get up to preach a sermon, and they'll say, today's sermon is on marriage. And you hear, oh no, not another one, or whatever. But marriage is a good thing. It's been given to us by God. Mm-hmm. And in Adam and Eve, Garden of Eden, it was established. I mean, that's where God literally said that man should cleave unto his wife, and Genesis chapter 2, and that's where it's been. And it's made for our benefit, and that's actually one of our points. But let's just jump into number one and have some conversations about these. But number one, marriage is supposed to be good.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. Let's start with this. Never ever go into any marriage thinking it will be perfect. Would you agree with that?
Totally agree.
Yeah. If you go into that thinking that everything's going to be wonderful, there's going to be no problems. There's never going to be a morning where someone's hangry and maybe wants to, snap or whatever. There's no such thing as a perfect marriage.
Yeah.
Our marriage isn't perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Things happen, and that's because you have two people who are not perfect living together in the same household, and that happens.
Yeah.
Things happen. There's no such thing as a perfect marriage. Genesis tells us that Eve was a helpmeet for Adam, a helper. And that's really the way marriage is supposed to be. And really in the whole way is, you do a wonderful job of helping me. I'll tell you that, guys, and if you're listening, your wife should be a great helper to you, helping you in your faults, things that you struggle with. I know that in the areas that I lack, Kaylah makes up, and that's such a blessing to my life. And I'm not just saying that just because she's sitting here. I really mean that. In the same way, I hope that I bring good to your life.
Yes, for sure. Women should, reciprocate the same way. We should be there to help our husbands as well.
Well, marriage doesn't have to be a bad thing.
Mm-mm.
It doesn't have to be, if you go to work and talk around the break table and you're like, man, I just, can't stand being where I'm at today. It shouldn't really be that way.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's not supposed to be a drag or something that's very awful to live in. It's supposed to actually be a good thing. Sure. God made it, designed it for us. And when you have two people who are acting like Jesus, at least in the sense of being kind to one another, being loving to one another, it is a joyful thing. We've had so many memories in our lives. I was scrolling through our Google Photos the other day, our cloud service that we store everything on. I've seen so many vacation memories, and I think this is what it's all about. It is enjoying life with one another.
Yeah.
It's not good that man should be alone, the Bible says.
Definitely.
Yeah. So marriage is supposed to be good. If you find yourself in a marriage that is not good, well, number one, it can be good. Would you say that? Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
It can be good.
It can be good. And if you find yourself in, a situation where maybe it's becoming a drag.
Yeah.
I would say, like we always say, you need to date your spouse.
Sure.
So, find out the reason why. And we need to remember that you still need to date your spouse.
Absolutely. That we should never forget that.
Mm-hmm.
To always be dating each other. I think that's actually one of our other points too, which is good. I want to talk about those too. This is really number two in the same way, exactly what we we're just talking about. Every marriage is worth saving. Mm-hmm. So we're not perfect people, and any time that we've needed to correct certain things, we've needed to do that. And that's good. That's normal. That's something that we need to do. But every marriage is worth saving, if it can be. Of course, it's something that we should say, hey, even if it's just small things that start at the beginning, hey, what can we do? Don't be afraid to go talk to someone or communicate, and communicate with each other. Yeah. That's one of our points on here that's a crucial thing. Communicate to one another. Be willing to say, hey, let's go talk to somebody. Let's get some help in this area because we need it. There's no shame in that. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Anything to add before we go to number three?
Kind of on the same line. And I will say, don't let the sun go down on your wrath. Mm-hmm. If you are having situations, fix the small stuff before it becomes bigger issues.
Right.
And that will save, I believe, a whole lot of marriages.
Yeah. Because we've had to do that. Mm-hmm. I'm a firm believer. It's what the Bible says. Yeah. First off, that never let the sun go down on your wrath. Don't. Because the more time that passes, the more bitter anybody can become. Yeah. I know that it's affected me that way, that I try my best. Hey, if there's something we need to address, now's the time to address it and to deal with that. You're right. You're exactly right. Let's see here. Number three, if you're struggling, let's see here. If you're struggling in your marriage, God knows your pain. And I wrote this down thinking of the church. Ephesians chapter 5. I'm going to turn over there. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 25. But the comparison is that that the church is his bride. And you think about that the church has not been perfect. Mm-hmm. Now, the institution is perfect. What Jesus purchased with his blood, that is, of course, perfect. But the people who make up that body are not perfect people. Mm-hmm. That's why people at church get into arguments sometimes, or maybe some things happen, because the people who make that up, that's where none of us are perfect. Mm-hmm. And the same way, God knows how we feel in the sense of, for instance, when someone leaves the church and maybe goes back into whatever, God knows that pain. He knows when one of his bride, the church, leaves him and strays, he knows that. He knows that. And I think that's something we can take comfort in, that God knows when I'm struggling through a marriage. He knows that. And we should know. Yeah. That's a great peace that we have.
Yeah.
Certainly. Number 4, the best advice is for both people to act like Jesus. I've never known two people get into an argument because they were being too kind to one another. Have you ever had that happen?
No.
Me neither.
Not that either.
That two people who are Christ-like minded, it really boils down, think of this, the golden rule.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus said, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you.
Mm-hmm.
That will help you in a marriage.
Mm-hmm.
You think of the second part of this, the Bible actually says, I think it's Ephesians chapter 4, around verse 29, but it talks about submitting to one another, that we're to submit to one another. As I said last episode, the times in my life where we've had more friction in a way is when I'm not being Christ-like. I'm not saying, hey, what can I do for Kaylah today? How can I put her first? What does she need from me? How can I help her? How can I make her day easier? Whatever it may be, but when I'm focused on me, that's when things kind of backfire. Would you say it's the same for you?
Yeah, same. Definitely same for me. And I think, like you said, putting the other person first.
Yeah.
But it's got to be like a constant reminder. I know for me per se, because life gets in the way. Our schedules get busy. We get worn out, and it's like, man, I'm so bogged down. I'm so tired. I don't want to be doing this. But times like that when I forget to put my spouse second, is when the friction can occur. So I think definitely submit to self.
Yeah.
Definitely helps with the friction. And
well, that's really like the whole point of Christianity in general is Jesus says we have to die to self. And in other words, we have to stop living for ourselves and live for Jesus. But in the same way in our marriages. Yeah. And I'm not saying totally, obviously if that person's doing wrong, no, don't submit to that. But what I'm saying is, if you have someone who loves you, try your very best to show them how much you love them by your submission. I'm never ashamed to say that. I try my best to submit to Kaylah as much as I can and be a great friend to her. Whether it's, hey, can you turn a dress on for me to wash tonight? Sure, honey. If that's what you need, I will submit to you and do that.
Maybe at midnight.
Yeah, maybe at midnight. I'm getting really good at that. But we won't talk about that. And I'm just kidding. It's all well and good. But that's just part of it. It's there's things that come up. Whatever it is, just try to be Christ-like. That solves a lot of problems, if not all of them. Sure. And sometimes when marriages aren't going maybe the way that they should, someone's not acting like Jesus. And I can say that I've had to stop and hit myself on the forehead and say, Tate, you're not acting like Jesus today. That's why this whole problem is occurring and happening, is because you're not acting like Jesus. You're not being kind or patient, whatever it is. And that can apply to anybody.
Oh, yeah.
And if you identify that and say, hey, you know what? I need to be Jesus today. I need to fix what I'm doing that's wrong. I need to turn away from that and focus on being like Christ. It'll help me, most certainly. Anything else before we go to the next one?
No.
All right. Number 5, know each other's love languages. So let's go over them first, and then we'll see if we can guess each other's love languages. So I'm going to be counseling a young couple here before too long. We're not really counseling them, but just giving them some things to look at before they get married. But one of the best books, what the book is actually called,
The 5 Love Languages.
We're not sponsored by any means, by the way, but that is one of the best books ever written besides the Bible. It's a wonderful book. It tells you a lot of things you need to know, especially before you even get married. And if you've been married for 30 years and maybe you don't know your partner's interests or their love language, it would be now a great time to read that book and study it. It's really that good because it has helped us in many ways. But
there's never a bad time to reread it. I know I had to read it in college, and then I read it when we got married, and pick it up every once in a while.
Sure.
Just to remind yourself.
Absolutely. So a couple of these, number 1, it says words of affirmation. So describe what that would be.
Yeah.
Just
So words of affirmation. You're just affirming to the other person.
like I love you.
Like, I love you. It could be something as simple as
Just complimenting.
thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Whatever X, Y, and Z that you did.
Some people love to hear that. Quality time is one. Sometimes people want to be alone. Maybe that's not their love language, but quality time can be a love language. Physical touch, that is part of love. That's some people need that more than others. That's love language. Acts of service, maybe just like a good deed. Washing the car without being asked, and that really, oh, honey, you shouldn't have done that. Stuff like that.
Doing the dishes.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
I've done that. Receiving gifts. Oh yeah, receiving things that are expensive. So, which
cheap it can be.
Yeah, which ones are mine, and we'll go from there.
So Tate's are definitely words of affirmation and physical touch.
Yeah, those are two things that I like. So, for instance, I'll give you this, like acts of service. I mean, I think that's great. I do like when people go out of their way, but I'm not. Maybe even receiving gifts. If somebody buys me a card, I'm like, well, thank you very much. But that's not it doesn't blow my mind. Like, wow, that person thought of me.
Yeah.
Now for some people that does. That's great. That's wonderful. But for me, receiving a card or something like that, that's not really on the top of my totem pole. But those that you mentioned were. So for you, which one? I want to look again. I know for sure receiving gifts.
Yeah.
I tell Kayla all the time, maybe you should have married a very rich guy, because Kayla could live a great lifestyle, but she has great taste. Do you not?
I do. I think I do anyway.
She does. She has great taste, but she could ride it in an Escalade. We could get you an Escalade with some 22s, whatever it is. It would live in the Beverly Hills. You would love it, wouldn't you?
I wouldn't mind.
Yeah, that's one of her love languages, and that's good. That's of those. But I believe number 2 was acts of service, was it not?
Yeah.
Acts of service. You love when I do what, for instance, like a service?
Like clean our dishes.
Yeah.
After supper. Wash the clothes.
Many people don't know this, but I worked at Zaxby's as my first job, and I was a cook/dishwasher. And I didn't become good until I started Ingles, where those ladies there taught me how to do that. And they even said, you're going to make a great husband one day if you know how to clean those dishes. And lo and behold, that has been one of those things that has made her the most happy, because I can clean a dish. I know how to start a dishwasher. I know how to start a washing machine. So that has been something that has benefited us in that way. So, gentlemen, if you're listening to this, learn how to wash a dish. Maybe if that's your wife's love language, maybe that'll help.
Yeah. Or take your wife on a cruise.
Yeah.
Whichever.
Or
Hawaii.
If you feel like blowing $2,000, go right ahead. It'd be a great thing to do. You can always make more money.
Yeah.
Cool. So know each other's love languages. Know what each other like. Ask each other. For instance, do you know your wife's favorite restaurant? Do you know your husband's favorite fishing lure? That would be a great comparison. Their interests.
Yeah. So actually, when we were dating and early on in marriage, we would play this game. What do we call it? 21 questions?
I think so, yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah.
And we would just ask each other questions just to help get to know each other a little bit more. And so make it fun when you're getting to know your spouse. Just
know each other. I mean, just know each other's interests. That's maybe if you're dealing with this and you think, man, maybe our marriage, we're just not close. I feel like we're not even friends. Well, get to know one another. Just have a simple conversation of saying, hey, what do you like? What's your favorite car brand? Or what cars do you like? Or what's your favorite flowers? It can be even simple things. But I know it has benefited me just to get to know you. And that's what helps us be the best friends we can be, I would say. Number 6, we just have on here forgiveness. Marriage, I'm going to just say this, it requires forgiveness. Since 2 people who are not perfect are living with one another and are married to one another, there's going to be moments where things happen. We're not perfect people. No one is a perfect person. The only person that ever lived was just Jesus, and he was perfect. But other than that, there's no perfect people. It has required forgiveness on both of our parts, where we've had to just say, hey, okay, I know this person's done wrong. They are sorry. They have asked for forgiveness, and I have to forgive them and move on. Is that easy?
No.
No.
Because you have to admit that, first of all, if you're going to ask for forgiveness, you have to admit that you were wrong.
Yeah.
Which can be hard. And so kind of in that same light, if you did mess up, it's okay to communicate that with your spouse. Mm-hmm. It's okay to say, I'm so sorry that I did X, Y, and Z, or that, I hurt your feelings in whatever way. Mm-hmm. And ask for forgiveness. Don't be too prideful.
Yeah.
Because we're going to make mistakes.
I've had to learn that I don't like when those things happen. I don't like when mistakes happen, or I don't like when I mess up, or whoever. But it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And we can't ever go into marriage thinking that. So a requirement of marriage is forgiveness. To just say, hey, this person had a bad day. Yeah. They had a bad moment. They made a mistake, and they have asked for forgiveness. I must forgive them. And you think about what Jesus said, that if I don't forgive others of their trespasses, how is he going, the Father going to forgive me? And that if a person's repentant, and says, hey, I'm sorry, and obviously we understand the circumstances there, that the person's serious, they've repented, they're going to stop doing wrong and start doing right. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about the guy who, just like a repeat. Yeah, like a repeat or something of a severe nature. We all know what I'm saying here. But forgiveness, it's helped me in my life to want to be more forgiving. Mm-hmm. That's helped me to just want to be more forgiving, to just want to be more like Jesus. It's amazing because, you can argue for the rest of your life if that's what we want to choose, but it's amazing how much more peace we'll have when we forgive. I know I have when I've just forgiven, and things would just be better and just continue to roll on. Yeah. Anything to add? No. So 7 is communication. Communication. Would you say that communication is key?
For sure.
So we have a joke in our marriage, in our relationship. Kaylah sometimes will hint to me. And sometimes ladies hint to their husbands. But listen, this has taken me many years to acquire, to be able to understand when Kaylah is hinting. Because at first, like for instance, she would want to stop by Sonic. And so she wouldn't say, hey, Tate, will you pull into Sonic and get me a hamburger? Because I would say, sure, if that's what you want to do, let's go get a hamburger. Kaylah would say, oh, man, there's a Sonic. And I'd go, yeah, that looks kind of new. Maybe they just built it. and then she'll kind of,
a Sunday sure would be good.
Yeah, that sounds really good.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute. And then I go, and I jokingly have done this before, I'll put my hands on my head and say, I'm receiving a signal. Mm-hmm. You want me to pull into Sonic and get you a hamburger. And she'll go, yes. And I go, there it is. Hinting's cool, I guess, but for most guys, we don't pick up on that stuff. Like, I'm a direct guy anyway. I've had people tell me that. I'm straight and to the point. If you want something, you got to tell me that you want that, and I'll get it for you. Yeah. But would you say communication's a vital role in the marriages?
Oh, yeah, definitely. If you don't have communication, then your marriage is going to suffer.
Yeah.
Which inadvertently is going to lead to some other things, possibly.
Yeah.
And so you have to have an open line of communication.
Yeah.
You have to remember that when you marry your spouse, you married them because you loved them and they were your best friend. Mm-hmm. And so you can't let that die.
Yeah.
And how did you become, a couple in the first place? How did you make it down the aisle?
Yeah.
Communication.
Yeah.
So it definitely is key.
I remember, you think about dating, we communicated a lot. We would text each other or call each other. Mm-hmm. And I remember we would Skype call sometimes just to see one another. And my mother, one time I had fallen asleep, just accidentally, I think it was. And my mom comes in and she's like, good night, Kaylah, or whatever. She shuts the computer. But we were in constant communication. Mm-hmm. In marriages, it requires constant communication. If there's a problem, address it. Mm-hmm. Don't run from it. Don't hint at it. Don't think, he's going to figure that out one day. That's not going to do anything but torture a man, just on my side of the fence. It's better when you just tell them the problem in a nice, loving, Jesus-like way and communicate. And even just communicate more than that. Conversations of just simply being loving toward it, being friends, and saying, hey, how was your day?
Mm-hmm.
Gentlemen, talk to your wife. I have figured this out over many years of training.
Yeah.
That when Kayla asked me how my day was, I'll say it was great. Got a sermon done. Got this done. It was good. Mm-hmm. And then I'll say, how was your day? And she wants to tell me about it. Uh-huh. Be willing to listen. She doesn't want you to say much. Just listen, right?
Yes. And women, just realize that your husband is probably not going to give you a whole synopsis of their day.
Yeah. And
so be okay with that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to know more, ask more, but don't take it personal.
Yeah. Men and women are different creatures, and that's the way that God has made us. You compliment me in the areas where I lack, mm-hmm. and I compliment you in those areas where you may not can do, whether that's whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is the great way that you're a mother to AJ that I can't be, mm-hmm. in the same way that I'm a father that you can't be to AJ. We serve our roles and we have a purpose, and it's amazing how we complement each other if we will help benefit each other. Mm-hmm. Our last one here is never stop dating. That's what somebody told me a long time ago. Never stop dating your spouse. So we may feel like our marriage is dead. We may feel like that it's falling apart. When's the last time you've been on a date? You know, and we're even asking ourselves this. We are due for one. We need to take time to just go to Chili's by ourselves or wherever and get some. One of her favorite things is chicken pasta from Chili's. It's really good. No green onions, right?
Yeah.
See, I memorized that.
Yeah.
So, never stop dating each other. So, ask yourself, when's the last time you've been on a date? For people who are going to be married soon, remember that dating doesn't stop after you get married. Mm-hmm. Now, it can be tempting to let it be because things get in the way, work, all this stuff. It can be hectic, but will we take time to just say, hey, you know what, honey, let's go out and get something to eat or whatever, go to a movie. Mm-hmm. That has helped us tremendously. I know it's helped me to just feel like everything's good. Yeah. The world's going to continue to spin.
Mm-hmm. And it's something that you have to make priority over.
Yeah.
Like I said, we're due for one, but usually when we have to plan one and we have a little kid, so we have to go get grandmas and grandpas to babysit.
Or whoever, yeah.
Yeah, or uncles and aunts. So just, like I said, make it a priority in your marriage. Yeah. It'll definitely benefit you.
As we've said that, we're not perfect people. We don't have this figured out. We know this is what works for us. We've talked about the scriptures about how, of being Christ-like, of being loving. And I think it will just, it'll benefit us the more we act like Jesus in our marriage. And I know there may be even people here that maybe you're not even that religious or whatever the case is. It will always benefit you to act like Christ. He set the perfect example. He lived a life here on earth that he was sinless. He died for our sins, and that's something we need to remember. It's never wrong to act like Jesus. I have made that my motto in our marriage that, hey, be Jesus today. Be Jesus today. Make the right decision. Anything to add before we close up?
One more thing. Never stop having fun.
Yeah. We like to have fun.
Yeah. Stuff's going to happen in your marriage, and it's okay.
Yeah.
We got locked out of our...
Oh, yeah. Let's tell that story. Story time. Let's transition.
Okay.
Memphis, Tennessee. Mm-hmm. Memphis School of Preaching. And I'll let you tell it.
Yeah. So somehow we got locked out of our apartment.
Somehow.
I don't know who did.
And the preference is you do lose your keys a lot.
I do lose my keys a lot.
But somehow it was locked.
Yeah. And so, mind you, we're on the second story of the apartment complex. And so I had this great idea that I had me and the dog a few hours earlier had walked out on the balcony. And so the forgetful person that I am, I'm like, I think I forgot to lock the door to the balcony. So Tate has to lift me up and catapult me. I have to climb up the railing on the balcony and get up there just to realize that for once I actually locked the balcony door behind me.
Yep. It was just a rather hysterical scene to see you on my shoulders. Like I picked Kayla up, she stood up on the little ledge, and then both of her feet are on the top of my shoulders, and I'm lifting her up, and I'm like, go, go, and because she's like literally killing me. And I'm like, go, go, go. And she finally grabs that rail and gets up there, and she goes all the way to the second story. And I'm like, oh my goodness, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were just scared that we weren't ever going to get back in. I think school was on a break or something coming up. It was something like that.
And I think the person that had the spare keys was not on campus as well.
That's what it was.
But
it was a fun experience.
Yeah.
Always have fun.
Yeah.
That's what marriage is supposed to be about. It's supposed to be a joy.
Mm-hmm.
Find that person you can enjoy life with, because life is too short, and you want to love one another, spend time with each other, make memories. And as I said, that's been one of the greatest joys of our marriage, is making memories and doing that. So hope we've been able to encourage you today. I know we'll be having some upcoming episodes in the future, but hey, let us know if you have anything. Reach out to us on Facebook, suggestions. We'd love to have anything that you have. But we're going to close out. If I had the fancy music, if I knew how to work this board over here like Jake does, I would cue the music, but we do not. So we will have to figure that out for next time. I like that jazz song that always plays at the end, but I'll have to ask him about that one. But thank you for listening. We'll see you next time on the Brotherly Love Podcast. Thank you very much.